You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique. Hey, and welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I am your host, Monique T. Marshall, and I am so glad that you are here. Whether you're brand new or you've been listening for a while, I appreciate you for choosing to spend some time growing with us today. Now, with that being said, let's have a real honest moment. Today being the last Thursday of July, it can come with a mixed bag of emotions, feelings. Maybe for you, you're reflecting on what hasn't happened yet this year, or maybe you're gearing up for a new season, or maybe like so many entrepreneurs, you're realizing there's something on your list that you keep skipping, something that keeps getting pushed down the priority list on your calendar week after week. And that's what we're talking about today, the hard stuff, the uncomfortable decisions, the uncomfortable conversations, or tasks that you know need your attention, but feel emotionally or mentally heavy to face. Not because you don't care, not because you're not working, but because it's hard to look directly at the things that stretch us. Especially when you're holding so much as a creative, as a business owner. And for many of us as Black entrepreneurs, navigating real life complexities and pressures that often go unnamed. So in this solo episode today, we're getting into what it really looks like to face avoidance with intention, not shame. And we're going to talk about what avoidance looks like and why it shows up, get real about how it stalls growth and momentum, name the things we avoid most and why they matter. And we're going to differentiate between stillness and stagnation. And I'm going to share some practical steps to gently face the hard stuff without overwhelm. So let's get into it. So I want to start with something that doesn't always get named, but shows up in almost every business journey. And that's avoidance. Avoidance isn't about being unmotivated or undisciplined, because most of the time it's actually a protective response. It's how your brain and body try to shield you from something that feels emotionally risky or uncertain. In a business, that something can look like a lot of things. Confronting your finances, restructuring your offers, launching something new, or having a tough conversation that could change everything. Avoidance shows up quietly, and here's what it looks like. It looks like that email that you've been meaning to respond to for about 2 weeks, the pricing change you know you need to make, but you keep postponing it. Avoiding your analytics or sales numbers because you're not ready to see what they might say. And then the big one is skipping the conversation with a collaborator or a team member that will require you to set a boundary. And the tricky part is it doesn't always look like avoidance. Sometimes it actually looks like being busy, filling your calendar with tasks that feel productive but aren't actually moving you forward. Now, let's name this in our context. So you know how we like to do on the Black to Business Podcast. Because as Black entrepreneurs, avoidance often carries that extra layer. Many of us grew up in survival mode. We were taught to stay composed, stay capable, and keep it moving, no matter what. So when something feels vulnerable or confronting, our instinct isn't always to face it. It's to protect ourselves. And that protection can look like delay. It can look like deflection or doing everything but the one thing we really, really, really need to do. But I do want to say this. Naming it doesn't mean judging yourself for it. It means giving yourself the awareness and the permission to move differently. And here's a gentle place that you can start. So you can ask yourself, what am I pretending not to see in my business right now? Not to fix it immediately, just name it and write it down. Say it out loud. And awareness is the first real step towards momentum. So now that we've named what avoidance can look like, let's talk about how it actually impacts your business, because it's not always loud or obvious. Avoidance doesn't usually come crashing through your business like this big old breakdown that's happening. It's more subtler than that. I actually feel like it creeps in slowly. So avoidance doesn't always look like something that's like hiding under the covers or is refusing to show up. Sometimes it looks like staying busy with everything except the thing that actually needs your attention. So you fill your days with tasks, but none of them are addressing the bottleneck in your process. You check off boxes, but deep down, you know the real work, the work that would move you forward, keeps getting postponed. And over time, that quiet resistance turns into missed opportunities, stagnant growth, and also unnecessary stress that we don't need. So when you avoid the hard stuff, you stay stuck in the same patterns. You're working, yes, but often in circles. You delay decisions that could unlock clarity, peace, and income. And you create a backlog of unspoken tension. So whether it's in your finances, your relationships, or your own self-trust, it adds up. And here's the deeper truth. So when we're not facing what needs to be addressed, we start to lose connection with our own leadership. We begin to doubt ourselves. We second guess. We lose momentum, not because we're not capable, but because we're not being honest about what's actually slowing us down. Now, let's name the layer that often doesn't get acknowledged, especially for us as Black entrepreneurs, because I feel like, how would I say this? I feel like we carry the weight of being visible. So of quote unquote, like representing or having to keep it all together, even when we are navigating things behind the scenes that most people will never see. Most people will never know we're going through. And that visibility can become pressure. It can make you feel like you can't afford to pause. You can't afford to shift. You can't afford to acknowledge what's not working. So what we do instead is we keep moving. But sometimes we're just moving further away from what we actually want, all because of the discomfort of facing it feels heavier than the discomfort of staying the same. So let's take some time to reframe that. And I'd say avoidance isn't proof that you're not serious about your business. It's just a signal. It's your mind and body trying to protect you from uncertainty. So instead of asking, why do I keep putting this off? Try asking, what is this avoidance costing me emotionally, financially, or creatively? Because what feels like a short-term comfort often creates long-term friction. And naming that cost, that's how we start to shift it. Okay? All right. So now that we've explored how avoidance shows up and how it can quietly hold us back, let's name the things we're actually avoiding, because clarity starts with honesty. The reality is the quote unquote hard stuff isn't just hard because of it being time consuming or complicated. It's hard because it carries a weight. So it carries that emotional weight, identity weight, risk. And if you've been in survival mode, that weight can feel like too much to carry some days. So what does the hard stuff actually look like? It can look like revising an offer that no longer reflects your purpose, even if it's the one people still ask for. It looks like letting go of a longtime client or collaborator because the fit isn't there anymore, or raising your prices, not because you want to scare folks away, but because you finally understand your value. It can also look like showing up more visibly, knowing that more visibility can bring more scrutiny. It can look like delegating work you've always done yourself, even if it means giving up some control. And it can also look like addressing your business finances instead of hoping the numbers will just fix themselves. And these decisions aren't just about logistics. They're about also alignment. So they ask you to pause, and then they ask you to ask, am I building something that reflects who I am and where I'm going? Or am I maintaining something out of fear? And listen, avoidance thrives in vagueness. So when we don't name the hard thing, it gets bigger in our minds. So this week, I want you to try this. Write down 3 open loops in your business. So things that you keep pushing off, postponing, or silently stressing about. And it could be that tough conversation, that proposal that you've been sitting on, that internal shift you've been avoiding. And once you do that, now choose just one. So that's your focus for this week. Not to fix it all in one sitting, not to create another pressure-filled to-do list, but just look at it honestly. Give it your attention, because naming it, that one step is regaining your power around it. Got it? So now that we've talked about naming the hard stuff, let's pause and clear up something that's also important. Because I know for many of us, when things feel slow or quiet, the first fear that creeps in is, am I stuck? Because here's what I want you to clearly hear. Stillness is not the issue. Stillness is not the same as avoidance. Stillness is intentional. It's when you pause on purpose, you pull back to the process, and you give yourself time to reflect, to assess, and then to reset. And also, stillness says, I'm making space to move better. Avoidance, on the other hand, it's the pause that comes from fear, from discomfort, from not wanting to deal with the uncertainty of what happens after you take that step. Avoidance also says, I don't want to look at this right now, so I'll busy myself with everything else but this thing. And they may look the same from the outside, but internally they are completely different. So here's a simple way to tell which one you're in. Stillness feels quiet but grounded. You know what you're working toward, even if you're not rushing to get there. Avoidance feels noisy. You're restless, you're overwhelmed, you're constantly doing, but the doing doesn't bring clarity. It brings more anxiety. And I believe that especially for us as Black entrepreneurs, we've been often conditioned to equate rest with falling behind. And embracing stillness can feel like a risk because of this. But stillness, when it's intentional, can be one of the most strategic tools that you use. So here's a quick self-check to try this week. Ask yourself, what part of my business currently feels clear or aligned? What part do I keep dancing around or making excuses for? What's one small action I could take this week to bring clarity to that area? It doesn't have to be a big leap, just a nudge. And here's a powerful mindset shift. Name your season. So instead of saying, I'm stuck, try saying, I'm in a refining phase. Instead of, I don't know what I'm doing, try, I'm giving myself space to make a clear decision. The language that you use matters, because when you name your season with purpose, you stop seeing it as a problem and start seeing it as a part of the process. Got it? Okay, now let's get into what to actually do when you know you've been avoiding something. Because once you've named it, the next step is not to beat yourself up. It's not to cram everything into your schedule and try to fix it all at once. It is to move gently, with intention, with compassion, and most importantly, my favorite word, which is clarity. And in all of this, it is not about perfection. It's about progress that respects the fact that you are human. And so here are a few ways to ease yourself into action without spiraling into shame or overwhelm. The one task rule. So pick one thing, just one, that you've been avoiding. Block off 30 minutes this week and give it your full attention. That's it. You don't need to finish it. You don't need to make it perfect. The goal is momentum, not mastery. Sometimes just starting is the win. And then another way is say it out loud. So avoidance thrives in silence. So name the thing. Say it to a friend. Journal it. Record a voice note if that's more of your style. I love me a good voice note. And there's power in hearing your own voice, acknowledging the hard thing you've been carrying. It makes it real. And when something is real, you can begin to work with it. And then create a hard stuff hour. So choose 1 hour each week where you handle what you've been avoiding. So not in a rushed or reactive way, but in a full presence way. So whether it's finally checking your finances, replying to that email, or updating something that you've been pretending not to see, create a consistent space for it. Call it what it is, a commitment to facing forward. And then tie the task into your vision. So when you're about to avoid something, pause and ask, if I took care of this, what would become easier in my business? And this helps reconnect the hard task to something meaningful. And when you see it as part of your freedom, not just a checkbox, it becomes easier to approach. And then you want to celebrate small completions. So that one thing that you finally stopped avoiding, I want you to celebrate it. Seriously celebrate and pause at the moment, because progress is not always loud or linear. Sometimes growth looks like sending the email, asking the question, saying no, clearing the clutter. These small completion tasks stack up and create that real momentum. So here's your challenge. Don't try to do it all. Just choose one hard thing and face it honestly. So no pressure. You don't have to power through. You just have to move with intention. So in closing, here's what I want you to know. Avoidance doesn't make you a bad business owner. It actually makes you human. But you don't have to stay stuck there. When you gently turn toward what you've been avoiding, you reclaim your clarity, you reclaim your power, and you reclaim your momentum. So this week's challenge is identify one thing that you've been avoiding in your business, name it, schedule time with it, and take one small intentional steps. Because your next level isn't waiting on more effort, it's waiting on more honesty. And you got this. We are cheering you on. So I want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode, being a part of the Black to Business family. And please, please, please share this information with another entrepreneur who could use it. And also rate our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And so with that being said, I will see you back here next week, same time, same place. But until then, thank you for being here. Keep building boldly and keep pushing the culture forward. Later.